Elements of Conscious and Unconscious Mind Part 2, Version 1. Videos to watch prior to this are the elements of the conscious and the unconscious mind. The content of this video is we're going to look at what drives a lot of our behaviour. How are our decisions influenced by the perceptions in our unconscious mind? And how is this knowledge used to influence us? Now we're going to use some simple models to demonstrate this. This information is very complex, but by using these simple models it will make sense to us. And this will be enough for us to learn to navigate conversations much better. So the first question is it the rider or the horse that decides where we go? Using the metaphor from the previous video. Now, many people will assume that it's actually the rider, but essentially the horse has the last say. If the rider learns to communicate with the horse really well, then the rider will guide the horse, but the horse effectively has the last say. So our unconscious mind, if we really want something, but we're very scared of that thing that we want, we will often not go for it. So really the forces will prevent us from doing that. And it's the forces in the perception to our unconscious mind, not that we're consciously aware of. So in this example, we can see that often if the desire of the forces cannot overcome the resistance, then we will distract ourselves. And it's the perception of the unconscious mind that will drive where we go. Now, what this makes this even more interesting is that because we get caught between these decisions, where we are then provides us discomfort. And because we don't feel good, we will often reach for things to change how we feel. So very much what happens in our daily lives is that something will happen to us that's even a response to what's happened, not necessarily where we're trying to obtain something, and it will give us a sense of discomfort. This discomfort does not feel good, and then we will reach for something to change the way we feel, which is why we will often go for TV, junk food, or many of the other ways to change how we feel. So this leads into a question. Why do we sabotage or distract ourselves? Well, it's really the case that sometimes what we want doesn't actually feel as good as we thought it might be. Or there can be certain beliefs where we will feel uncomfortable being successful or uncomfortable being happy, because it just doesn't feel normal. And while bizarre that sounds, it's actually quite common for people to do this. And you'll see people having fears of success, fear of failure, and often they will get some form of it and then sabotage themselves. So it's effectively that when they're in or reach their goal, it provides a sense of discomfort. This does not feel good, and therefore they can either sabotage or distract themselves. What is even more interesting is that clutter or procrastination are often postponed decisions. So we have something that needs attention, but in that moment it doesn't feel good doing it, so we just don't do it. And then this just builds up where we have many, many things to do. It logically doesn't make sense because we're going to have to do it at some point, and that's where the conscious awareness of this can be very powerful in how we organise and make our decisions. So how does our perception influence our decisions? It is that our procrastination is often illogical. If someone has a toothache, then there would be a need to visit a dentist. There may be a lot of resistance due to a bad experience, just the thought of going to the dentist, and therefore they put it off. But what's illogical about this is it's only prolonging the pain. So the toothache is going to remain, so that's constant, and at some point they will have to visit the dentist. But in any one moment, the feeling from our unconscious mind will just want to avoid the resistance. How is this information used to influence us? Well, very often in marketing and most sales things, they can create the double bind. Now, what is this? So effectively, we have our person, Mary, and that there's an element that provides discomfort. So Mary wants to move away from this. So it might be not feeling good, not having enough confidence, where she needs to buy some clothes, any element that she's moving away from. It might be certain illnesses, etc. So of course then the solution is proposed. This creates a force moving her further away from the element that provides discomfort and towards the solution. Now if this solution has some negative consequences and someone was to point those out, then this causes a lot of pressure into Mary, because effectively she's now caught between a rock and a hard place, which is the double bind. So people will not be welcoming to you suggesting that this solution does not work. And often there's a real art to how you would do this. But first, if there were other solutions, then this would actually reduce a lot of pressure on the system, and therefore Mary would not feel like she was caught between a rock and a hard place. And you often get a lot of people saying, oh, I just had to get it done. I just had to do whatever they needed to do. Because people can't sustain a lot of tension within their system. And that's why often providing other options will really take the pressure off people. So that draws this video to a close. Hopefully it made sense what drives a lot of our decisions and how these elements can be manipulated to influence us one way or another. In later videos we will look at many examples of this that have nudged us in one decision or another, from buying popcorn at the cinema to more serious decisions that we have to make.